Hello everyone, my name is Yuhong. We are Group 8 and the topic of study is problems and challenges in performing volunteer work. Our group consisted of Captain Wang Ziming, Zhu Yihong, Zhang Zhiyan, and Wang Xinyu. Next, the four of us split in two parts, one for the question and one for the challenges, with two people coming to explain each part. Nemi and Wang Ziming describe problem in performing volunteer work. In our opinion, the first problem is that young volunteers lack a stable enthusiasm for volunteering. The main reason for this problem is because the young stage is the stage transition from school to society. Young volunteers' outlook on life, values, and worldview are not mature enough, and their willpower and self-control are still relatively poor. The second problem is that young volunteers are not competent enough on their own and are too dependent on the service. The third problem is the lack of a tightly organized management system. Volunteers are highly mobile and dispersed. The fourth problem is the difficulty in securing funding for volunteer activities. Volunteers have limited activity to raise funds themselves, and their financial resources are unstable and may be insufficient. The fifth problem is a mismatch between volunteers and volunteer positions. When professional knowledge in medicine, law, or agriculture is needed, such as in community elderly homes, rural areas, and other voluntary activities, but the volunteers may not have such knowledge, they will not be able to deal with the problems in this area in time. The sixth problem is that volunteers do not share or understand the vision, mission, and values of the volunteer organization. The seventh problem is the lack of publicity and promotion. By now, many people in the community don't know enough about volunteer activities. Followed by a talk by Wang Ziming.
First question is insufficient project innovation. Volunteering projects are always limited to very one-set project, and there is a lack of innovation activities to reach volunteers aim. And then question is lack of intellectual support. People often think of volunteering as just concrete service work that doesn't require theory and researching. Volunteering can only start superficial. In the meantime, lack of survey and study also are key points. It's difficult to get the organizational development and project innovation of volunteer service, resulting in a serious problem at a low level. Not worse that no incentive mechanism of volunteer, and the incentive way in is single. Also, volunteer service is a kind of free activity to help others. Volunteer organizations are volunteers and need to fund the society and the public. So far, there has been some problems where the incentive mechanism of volunteers. The next question is formalism impact. Insufficient does not respect to volunteer enough. For example, in China, volunteer society is most formalism, which will also have a negative impact on the development of volunteer service. Volunteer will also be influenced by this environment. The last question is international communicate exchange. as in international exchange between COVID-19 are gradually decreasing. Volunteering can only be done domestically. It is a significant issue for volunteering. Thank you.
I will introduce 4 challenges in volunteering, starting with time. The main question that arises about time is how to balance academic and volunteering time. At present, the academic pressure of college students is not as great as that of junior high school, but the pressure still exists. How to make it possible for us to relax ourselves and participate in volunteer activities while completing the academic problems is a bigger challenge. The second point is the lack of support from family and friends. For parents, we should be responsible for our own future development at our current age. As for volunteer activities, they may think that it's unnecessary and there is no need to take up time to do it, which makes it a challenge to self-doubt whether or not this should be done. Third, for individuals, some people will have psychological rejection for their clients. They may tend to serve teenagers and people in their own age group. And when they serve clients they don't like, such as they may be people with disabilities, or older people may have poor service attitudes and become less serious about their work. In addition, they may also encounter that the service they do is not what they want to do, and they will feel bored. It's a big challenge for volunteers to change this mentality. The last point is incomprehension of the volunteers. For example, in China, if an epidemic occurs in a city, the city will be closed, and we will have volunteers to help us with nucleic acid testing. At this time, people in the city can't go out to work, play, or do things they like. There is resistance in people's hearts, and some people will become uncooperative because of this resistance, and it's not easy for volunteers to work. If they lack this understanding, they will cause some troubles, and it's also a challenge for volunteers. This is the end of my sharing. Thank you.
I will show other challenge in volunteer. First of all, there is no sense of achievement in participating in volunteer service, so only a small number of people are willing to participate in volunteer service. We should give volunteers some spiritual incentives, such as increasing all kinds of media and publicity, so that the society can better understand the outstanding deeds of volunteers. Voluntary organizations should give volunteers more care and let them feel warm. Since volunteer service are non-profit, we should pay more attention to the spiritual needs of volunteers. This can increase the sense of belonging of volunteers. Second, the overall level of volunteer work and professional skills is low. They must receive systematic professional education. On the other hand, we should attract more people with professional volunteer service skills to participate. Third, the participation threshold of most young volunteers is low. So young volunteers generally lack the ability of social practice and cannot deal with the problem encountered in voluntary service. They often lack the ability of society communication, which reduces the quality of young youth volunteer service. And finally, the lack of laws and regulation is also a difficult problem of volunteer service. The rights of volunteers in voluntary service cannot be effectively protected, and their personal safety cannot be guaranteed. The rights and professional safety of volunteers need to be protected by more detailed laws and regulations.